Guys, we just want to say thank you for everyone who contributed to this year's, well, our first annual pet food drive, and we're actually donating your donations to Bobbi and the Shrades, and I have Ron here. Ron, can you tell us a little bit about the organization so they know where these supplies are going to?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, so Bobbi and the Shrades has two shelters, one in Glendale, Queens, New York, is where I work. It's the smaller of the two shelters. The main shelter, the large one, is out in Freeport, Long Island, and that shelter houses somewhere around 80 cats and dogs.
Okay.
It's very large, takes a lot of work to handle that shelter. Bobbi has a number of assistants, office assistants, plus volunteers, and of course we need more volunteers out there because of how large that facility is. The Glendale shelter houses approximately, the maximum we do is about 12 cats and 12 dogs. And right now, since the pandemic, we've been doing adoptions by appointment only.
Okay.
So we really don't have walk-ins unless an application is made for a specific cat or dog, and then that person would come in and we would do a meet and greet with that cat or that dog. What it does, and what we realized was during the pandemic, let me go back. Before the pandemic, all our dogs and cats had to be back in their crates, in their cages by about 11 o'clock, which is when we opened the doors to the public.
Okay.
And from that point on to way into the afternoon, they unfortunately were in their crates all that time. Once the pandemic hit and we didn't have public coming into the shelter, the cats and dogs were free the entire day.
Okay.
So when I opened in the morning, I opened somewhere around 6:30 and walk the dogs, do the feeding with both cats and dogs, and then the dogs and the cats are out. From that point on till we close during the week at 5 o'clock, and then there's a night person that comes in to do the final feeding and walking from about 8 to 10 o'clock. So what we realized was, unfortunately, for everyone, of course, the pandemic was a very serious issue and a very serious concern. But we realized that having the dogs out all that time was so great for them and the cats, and they just mingled with each other.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we kept that going till this day, and we only are taking appointments right now, as I mentioned before. So we really don't have walk-ins. We'll address anyone who comes to the door, who has a question, or give them an application to come back, go online. And that's how we're still running our operation.
Walk me through the application. Let's say we saw something online, we saw a pet that we like, we have an eye on, or we don't know what we want yet, and we want to adopt.
Right.
What's the adoption process like?
Okay, with the application online, you will ask for your personal information, obviously, the name of the dog or cat if you have seen it, because on our website we have photos of the dogs, the cats, a short biography of each of them, where they came from, how old they are, things like that. And they would, the client would list the name of the dog and cat on there. And then the other questions really revolve around, where do you live? Is it an apartment? Is it a house? How many children are in the house? Are there any other pets? Any concerns for the dog or the cat that we should be aware of? Do you already have a pet, and maybe you now have a veterinarian that you could give us the name and address of? And then we'd like some personal recommendations, as most applications ask for in any job, in any organization. The final part of it is that they understand there's going to be a home check. Okay. And when we were operating during the pandemic, the home check was done by Zoom. Okay. Right? Because we have to make sure, Bobbi and all her assistants have to make sure that the home is a good place for this cat and dog. And it's, there are times when we reject the application because of something we see, in the home that we feel is not the right place for this dog or this cat. Okay. And it could be children and little babies or children that may not adapt to the dog, or other concerns in the apartment. Maybe the dog is a little too large for a very small apartment.
Gotcha.
So we do the home visit, and most of the time, probably 90% of the time, it goes through. And once that's done, then the client comes back to the shelter. There is an adoption fee for both dog and cats, and then it's theirs.
Are you allowed to say what the adoption fee? How much
it varies. It really varies upon the breed of the dog.
Okay.
More so than with the cats. I figured the cat is now about 200, and then the dogs range from maybe 300 up, depending on the breed, the age, so on and so forth.
Now, is it possible to adopt more than one pet at the same
Yeah,
time?
absolutely. We've had many clients who have taken either 2 dogs or 2 cats.
If they're siblings or stuff like that?
No, they don't. Yes, that we do have sometimes. We do have siblings, but it isn't necessary to adopt when you have a brother, sister, or 2 brothers, 2 sisters. It could be, 2 different dogs, 2 different breeds, or who get along. Or in the past, I'd say 6, 8 months, we've had like a lot of Chihuahuas, and not all of them were siblings, but they do get along with each other. And you could have 2 Chihuahuas and not related to each other, but they are so adorable and so cute. You can't help but having them there.
Now, it's no secret I'm a dog person. Now, have you had people who adopted a dog and a cat?
Yeah.
At the same time?
Yeah, well, I don't know if at the same time, but you will get someone who has a dog and now would like to have a cat as well, or vice versa.
All right, what's something that you want to let the audience know, what they should know about animals in case they're deciding to adopt, or on the other spectrum that they're moving, or whatever the situation is, they need to...
I think my first thing would say to be adopt, don't buy.
Okay. Say that one more time for the people who are in the back of the pew.
Right. Adopt, don't buy.
Now, why is that?
Well, because there are so many rescues, so many dogs out there that are just, and cats, that are just so lovable, so great, and really need the love of a home and people in the home to share that life with them. And, these are dogs, some of them are surrenders.
Okay.
We get people who have to surrender their cat or dog for various reasons. It could be monetary, it could be a death in the family. There are many reasons why people surrender their animals, and, we go through that, and then we take the animal, make sure the animal is medically okay. And then there are strays as well, that we take. Perfect example, during the summer of 2020, it was a Sunday morning. I was alone at the shelter, and I got a knock at the door, and a couple of girls came and said when they went back to their car, they found a crate totally covered in plastic with a cat inside, left right on by the grass by the car, 90-something degree day, no water, no nothing in there. So, so that occurs. We just we found a pit bull, pregnant, tied, just around the corner from us that we were alerted to, went there.
No note or anything?
Excuse me?
No note?
No, nothing.
Okay.
Just tied to a banister. The dog was pregnant, called Bobbi, the owner of the shelter, told her the situation. We got a colleague of mine has a truck, and we put the dog with some help of some people that were nearby into the truck right to the vet. To be taken care of. That dog is still at Freeport, correct?
She's being fostered.
Fostered, that right. And, pit bulls have this reputation. But when I went over to her, she was gentle, petted her, but you could see she was in stress because of the pregnancy. Right, exactly.
Did the dog give birth yet, or?
Unfortunately, the puppies did not make it. Just the mother did.
Okay, well.
So, there's a lot of that, and there are too many dogs and cats in many, many shelters, not just in New York, but across the country. It really is not necessary to go to a store to buy a puppy for $1,000 or $2,000, a pure breed, anything like that. I know there are people, who'll do it, and this is what they want, which is fine. But just consider, dogs that really need a home, really need the love and care of a family to adopt, that particular
and another
animal.
thing people should know is, if you're in the market to get an animal, you don't necessarily have to just pick a puppy or a kitten. There are
not at all.
animals out there that need.
Plenty. 4 years ago, I'm a cat person, so I've had cats for about 45, 50 years. And about 4 years ago, we had a cat at the shelter. His name is Prince Tuxedo.
I like the name already, Prince Tuxedo.
that was a surrender.
Okay.
From a family. It was people in the family were allergic, and they surrendered the cat. And I became enamored of this cat working there, and I adopted. And the cat was already 10, 11 years old. So there's nothing wrong with taking. Matter of fact, we had a woman that I was on the phone with who only wanted an older cat. Did not want, a kitten. Wanted a cat that was maybe 6, 7 years old. So everyone has their own choice of animal. But older animals do. A lot of people like an older animal. They don't have to go through the process of the training of everything that a puppy needs to go through.
All right, so you mentioned surrendering. Now, unfortunately, some people make decisions. They purchase an animal during the holidays, or there's a baby coming in the picture and they can't have the animal anymore, or they're moving, or unfortunately someone passes away. They have the pet and they can they're no longer here, so the pet.
Right. We've had all of that.
How does someone surrender an animal? What's the proper way to do it?
They usually will either come to the shelter or they'll call us.
Okay.
And they'll call us, and I've taken many calls where they tell me I have a cat or I have a dog. I'm ill right now. I'm alone. I cannot take care of the pet anymore, and I would like to, surrender. And it's either in person or on the phone. If it's on the phone, and then we'll take all the information. Someone would probably from the shelter go to the house if the person's not able to take the animal to us. And obviously we need to look a little bit more into the reason why, because sometimes some of the reasons get a little fuzzy, and make sure the cat is healthy.
Okay.
So there's
both
no
animals,
cat,
whichever one it is, it has to be healthy.
No cat or dog comes in, without making sure they've seen a vet, or we have some medical information on them, or we will actually take them to the vet. Like the cat that I found near the shelter, immediately took the cat in, but I would not take it into the shelter. Gave it food, gave it water, and then 5 minutes later, the cat was in my car over to our vet to make sure that the cat was, was good. And the cat was 5-6 years old, needed some dental work, was adopted maybe within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
But you mentioned adoption. That's my next question. What's the quickest turnaround you've seen for adoption and the longest process?
About how soon How soon can an adoption happen if the person is interested?
Yeah.
Within a week.
Within a week.
Yeah.
What's the longest process?
I'm really not much more than that. It all depends on the home visit.
Okay.
And the client actually meeting the animal, more the dog than the cat maybe, and just to make sure there is compatibility, between them. We'll do maybe, I've seen people come to the shelter maybe 2 and 3 times to get used to the particular dog, to make sure that they are compatible with the dog, that, like the dog likes them, they like the dog.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Situation.
My next question, have you had family members come in, they were looking at one specific dog, there wasn't a compatibility, but they found another dog that kind of gravitated, or a kitten, whichever one, or cat.
That's happened pretty recently. That's happened
all the time. All right.
Right. You come in for whatever dog they want.
A Chihuahua.
Right. Exactly. And then because when this happened, we had many more dogs. We've done a lot of adoptions recently, so we had maybe 6 or 7 more dogs than we have right now. And they look at another dog, or the other dog is out, and they become enamored of that particular dog.
The dog starts following
and
them,
they now decide, well, maybe I'll like this dog better than this dog. It's how they relate to the animal,
gotcha.
how the animal also relates to the person. We've had people come in. I mean, I'll take myself for example. Now and then we'll have a cat that's sort of feral, that's very difficult to handle, would just scamper, run away from you, and yet when a certain client comes in to see that cat is like putty in the client's hands. I mean, that happens, a number of times.
So it's chemistry, it's just like everything else, it's got to be chemistry.
We have, same thing happens with dogs. A little Yorkie, I remember when came in that I was holding and great, and now won't go near me. I think they like women more than they like men.
Well, you have to find your particular animal.
Right.
And that's why you have people like this who will guide you to, whatever your decision is going to be. They're going to guide you, and then you make your family. All the family members have to be on the same page if they're going to take an animal into the home, because that is going to become a family member for many years. You got to remember that when you do get an animal, this is a commitment that you're making for how many years? We're about like 7,
depends
10,
on the year of the
15.
animal, obviously.
It really depends on the animal.
Usually,
it's a commitment that you have to be very, you have to take serious if you're going to do this.
An interesting point that you make when you talked about commitment. During the pandemic, there was always the thought of, now the kids are home because they're online from school. Yeah. Parents are home, they're not in the office, everything is done by Zoom and online. So now we could have a pet, we could have a dog, because everyone is here.
Yeah.
And then 2-3 years later, after that everyone started to go back to
like
school,
now?
back
Yes.
to work. The thought is now, who's going to take care? The cat is not a big problem, but dogs are.
Yeah, dogs need to be walked.
But what's interesting, if I'm correct, and you tell me, I don't remember getting any calls from anyone who adopted a dog or a cat during that time that had to return it because they all went back to work.
That's good.
I don't-
They made time.
Freeport got one or two.
Yeah,
We had-
maybe Freeport, right? But we didn't get any. Which you think about this, and what are they going to do? The dog has to be walked. The dog
Yeah.
can't stay alone the entire day, whatever, when they're working in school. But it didn't happen. So the commitment that you mentioned before, is very, very important. It's a responsibility, and it's a huge responsibility and commitment, to use that term again.
All right, so
to
we're talking about
family.
commitment. If you're committed basically to adopting an animal, or better yet, you need volunteers, how many volunteers would you say you need on average? As many as you can get?
Almost.
All right,
The
so-
shelter in Glendale is smaller, so we manage pretty much with the volunteers. But the one in Freeport, we would always ask for many more volunteers.
For those of you
there.
who are watching, don't know
Right,
what Freeport
Freeport.
is.
If you're on Long Island and interested
Is
in
it on
animals-
Long Island or in Long Island? Because people fight about this all the time. It's on Long Island. I believe if you're
on Long Island,
it's on
It's
Long
in-
Island, not
on
in
Long Island in Freeport.
All right. So if people want to volunteer, how do they reach you guys?
There's an application. They could do it online, or they could come to the shelter and they could fill out an application and give it to us. We will go through the application, and just as I did years ago, I made an application to volunteer. I'm a volunteer. I'm not on staff, and I brought it there. Someone named Rose called me. I went down and started work. So you have to be a certain age. We can't have 12 and 13-year-olds.
You gotta be able to
need a
drive.
minimum
Let's
age
just
to
say you
walk
got to-
dogs, but you're trained.
Okay.
So if we have someone coming in, I'll train the person on cats, or we have people training on dogs. Whatever the case may be. And it's it's a lot of work, because it's not just getting a dog on a leash and taking the dog for a walk. There's a lot of cleanup. The
yeah.
cages get cleaned. The
That's
shelf
the
has
part.
to be
It's not the
cleaned.
glamorous part.
Right, not the glamorous part.
But
and
it has to be done.
And every cage, cat and dog, is cleaned and disinfected every day. Every day.
How often? Like every day? You're talking about like every couple of hours, or the whole day? Just at the end.
In
of
the
day?
morning, when we go in, I usually handle all the cats. So I will clean all the cat cages, and there's someone who usually does the dog cages. And then mid-afternoon, there's another crew, volunteers that come in, and they will do cleaning again. Not the deepest cleaning that we do in the morning, but they'll make sure that the litter is clean, the food is ready, there's nothing all around. Take the dogs for a late morning, mid-afternoon walk. Make sure their cages are clean. If they need wee-wee pads or whatever they need.
I have a question.
Right.
I'm dying to ask this guy. I'm pretty sure the audience wants to know this. Now, cats, I can understand. You can put them somewhere and they do their business. They take care
In
of
the
it.
litter box.
Now,
right.
when you have a bunch of dogs, while you're cleaning, somebody else, let's say I'm a volunteer, how many dogs are you giving me to walk? And how strong do I have to be to walk all these dogs?
Most of the time, it's just one dog to
Okay.
walk. I've walked 2 at a time. It depends also on the dogs.
Okay.
So you mentioned before siblings. Sometimes you have 2 dogs, that are siblings, or you have 2 dogs that really, really love each other and play with each other, and you see them all the time, and they're great to walk together. So, but you would need someone who is experienced, who's been
Yeah.
there a while to do that. But
just-
most of the time, it's 1-to-1.
I just remember when I had a dog and I had to walk him. He was doing his business, and all of a
Right.
sudden he sees something in the corner, and I wasn't paying attention. I was
Oh.
looking that direction. My arm got yanked out of the socket a few times. So I can't even imagine a few dogs at the same time.
Anyone who is trained on dogs know, number one, we use double leashes. So it's not just one leash around a harness, one leash on the collar.
Okay.
The leash is around the wrist of the person who's walking, especially if someone's just starting to do that. And they only walk with a staff member to begin
Okay,
with for
good.
X number of hours till they really feel comfortable, with the dog. And a lot of dogs, Ralph, a dog we had a while back, you walk him, just pulled and pulled and pulled. He's a great dog. Got adopted. He's in a great place that he could run around.
He could do his
yeah,
thing.
Yeah. So that's another thing when we look for adoption. If we have dogs who are really active,
Very
right,
active.
right. They may not be suitable for a
an
small
apartment.
3-room apartment.
Yeah.
So we try to look for somewhere where there's a backyard that the dogs could run
Somewhere
around.
they can take their energy. and
Exactly,
take care of that.
exactly. Like,
Now, I was going to mention, Well, we mentioned if they want to volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
if they want to adopt, all that stuff. We forgot the most important thing. What's the phone number for them to reach you and the website?
Okay, I'm offhand. It's up in my
Well, there's going to be a thing
my
that's
head.
going to pop up right here.
Is there? Right, okay.
But I think it's BobbyandTheStrays.com.
BobbyandTheStrays.com, right?
And the phone numbers of the offices.
Oh, they're all there online. Everything is there. Bobby's number is there. The Freeport number is there. The Glendale number is there. It's all there. And the application is there. The volunteer or application to adopt. The photos are there. All you have to do is click Freeport, Glendale. The photos will come up.
Okay.
Everything is very, very, pretty well organized. And any events that we'll be doing.
I was going to ask you about the events.
We do.
You're reading my mind right now.
There's a
Do you have any
page
events
for
coming up that you can talk about
adoption
right
events. I am trying. I'm aware of one in April at the car show.
That's it.
Which car show?
Yeah.
It's the car show in Javits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Subaru, the company, the car company,
Yeah.
Subaru, is very
I guess we'll be seeing each other because I go to the car show every year.
Right. They're involved in animal adoption and
Okay.
rescue. And what they do is over the week or 10 days at the car show, they invite a shelter each day.
Okay.
They set up a huge pen. We were there last year. We brought
You know what?
a number of...
I did see that last year.
Yeah,
I
we were
didn't
there.
click. I was
yeah.
like, why are
well,
the
each
animals
day
here?
it's a different shelter,
Okay.
so you may have been there when a different shelter was there. But they have everything set up for us, and we brought a number of dogs. Last year at that time we had some puppies, so we brought the puppies there. But it's a good 5 or 6 hours that we're there, and and adoption applications. There are a lot of people at the car show,
Yes.
so it's a good way to get people to
Get
come
the
and
word
see the
out.
dogs, right? Exactly, and and adopt.
All right, guys, if you have any questions about adopting or volunteering or any information that you have or that you would like to get, feel free to reach out to Ron and the rest of the staff at Bobbi and the Strays. I'm Evan Saint-Gerard. I'm glad you watched this. I hope you got some value out of this. If you have any questions about anything, you know who to reach.
Right.
Talk to you guys
Come
later.
to us.